So I don't normally do 3 journal entries in a day for the video portion of my journal, but I'm going to do that. So I tried to give Chris a chance to earn back going tomorrow, and that didn't work out. So we'll just have to hold that off until next month. They do community day every second Tuesday, so some of his friends are actually moving, so I do need to do some research, look into some things that are between us, because they're moving to Utah on the 18th. So there's that. A little bit worried about my cousin. She didn't respond back today. She usually says goodnight every night. We've done that for a while. I'm not always great at getting back right away, but I do try and get to her before falling asleep or whatever, before going to bed or ending up embroiling myself in reading, trying to sleep. Basically, I may not be as great at getting to her right away, but I do get back to her, and I just kind of wonder if something's wrong, or if I've offended her somehow. But I don't want to end up bugging her. Hi, Lucky. I don't want to end up bugging her over it. I guess I'm just going to wait and see. Hi. I've got my paints out. I filled out some job applications today. I do want to add to my earlier portion of the journal that Chris actually stopped having extreme reactions to me job hunting a little while back. So we actually think that this is because of the stress of, the holidays and stuff. And Becky not calling. No call, no cards, no nothing. And we are transparent. Chris knows who calls my phone. He knows. Often he thinks it's his dad straight off, because most people I know are more into texting. I don't mind talking on the phone, but there are times that I'm just I don't know what to say. You want to sit in silence with me? Sometimes there's a lot to talk about, and sometimes there isn't, and that's okay. And sometimes texting's easier, because it's also easier to organize your thoughts, especially if, you're having a long game conversation where there would honestly be a lot of silence. I don't mind sitting in silence there, as long as it's not someone that I get to be insecure about, who might misinterpret the silence. And some people are weird. They just want to see something in everything. They try and look at you like they look at the Queen of England, and how every single word or the picture placement around her is interpreted. And I'm not exactly sure why YouTube thinks that I need to be interested. I skip most of those. Why the fuck do I care about the fucking Queen of England? She's not my queen. She's not leading my country, and I don't want her to, honestly. I think it's kind of disgusting how they plaster her family's problems and struggles in the media, and I'm just it's family business, leave it alone. I mean, if they chose to talk about it and address it publicly, I would think that you'd want to not overanalyze every single little detail, because it is honestly, it's not like he's the heir to the throne. I'm just gonna come out and say it. He would be in line if something happened, yes. It's one of the more direct heirs, but there are rules. Like, don't they have a rule that you have to live in England? Like, moving to Canada could actually, like, remove him from succession. Like, not, like, living there most of the time. Like, could just remove him from succession. It would be basically the same as stepping down. Is that why they care so much? Because there is a succession. A succession. Like, why do they freak out about it? You know, it's not the first person in history to just decide to step back. And I would assume that being brought up knowing that stuff their whole life, he would know exactly what that could result in before even doing it. His wife might not, though. She might not. She might not know that, you know, completely leaving might actually take away something that is considered, that might be considered pretty big for him. I don't know, I think it's the sort of thing that you need to think about ahead of time, and it shouldn't be specifically because of another person that you give up something that is important to you. If it's important to you, so I think that that's just sort of something that is personal, and they should just figure it out on their own. I hate that I know enough about this to even have an opinion. Anyway, I've kind of got some neat lesson plans planned out. But anyway, I do have to go through. It's one of those friends that doesn't live close. So we're gonna find a place kind of in between, let the kids kind of play together, you know, before they move, kind of say goodbye. Maybe try to exchange some sort of information so that maybe they can Skype or something. I'll kind of talk to her about that, see if we can't do that, maybe get them writing letters to each other or something. You know, so it doesn't necessarily have to mean the end of friendship between them, but, you know, sometimes that doesn't work out. Sometimes it does. I don't know. It's just kind of a rough thing. It's not really a surprise, though. At least for Jean and I, we knew. We knew that they were planning on moving. I mean, Chris's friend was homeschooled before, but he ended up put in public school so that their mom could work to save up to move. They ran into a lot of the discrimination that I run into. And he has, like, the education and qualifications for these positions, and they're just not, yeah. So they're going to a place that is, I guess, familiar to the husband, and that he actually loves a lot. So, yeah. Hopefully there is a good support system waiting for them. Some family or something. Yeah. Yeah, out here there's a lot of bullshit that goes on. There'll be temporary, like they've gone through it too, like the temporary positions that say that they're going to last longer than they do, that leave you with the impression that it is much longer. But then they just fire you after 2 months. They just let people go after that long. There is a whole bunch of things. Also, there's like the complete double standard. I hate to say this. I'm going to bring this up. Most of the neighborhood that we live in is not pale skinned. There are some very nice people who live here, but then there are people who kind of half live here and half live in Mexico. And when they come back here, they don't respect the laws here. So if we lit like the fireplace on a day that it was banned, we would probably get saddled with fines and legal action. A lot of the people who live half here and half in Mexico, effectively, in that respect, some of them actually spend most of their time here. But what I mean like by that is they're not really respecting the laws here. They're living by the laws from Mexico, not here. And it doesn't matter what the law is here because they are not reacting to the law here. They are reacting to the law in Mexico because that is the one that they know and that is the culture that they adhere to. And some people are very nice and some people are assholes. Even separate from that, even with that, some people who do this just don't really know. They don't really know why this is. In the valley, we have no burn days. Now, while there are some no burn days, like the blanket blackout around certain holidays, that seems to also be a thing. Like, they blatantly go a little bit further than would be considered a time where things burn more often. They very clearly know when the pagan holiday is, and the people making these regulations are very blatantly Christians, so you could literally be persecuted for religious practices on the grounds that it is a separate ban. So we did not burn a Yule log this year on Yule. We have to wait, and then like this year, there were just bans after bans after bans, so we didn't get to do it at all. It is basically a soft version of persecution, where they will say that it is not your religion, it is the fact that you were doing this thing. But the truth of the matter is that regardless of what the pollution is at, they blanket that out specifically because it is a known time for pagans to celebrate, and this is a known practice, the burning of the Yule log. That is its own thing. Arizona is not known for being accepting of pagans. We actually know someone who 30 years ago, that was the reason why he lost his children. And they claimed that it was a hostile environment because religion, and that was it. So his wife and he were actually charged with providing a hostile, like as a criminal charge, which sounds ridiculous, with providing a hostile environment because pagan. Yeah, I actually looked into that. It's legit. The world we live in sucks. And you won't hear about this stuff in the news. And there are people who have been accused of various, like, just being crazy and stuff too. And you will often find that it is disproportionately pagans who are accused of these things. There is a note of bias there. It is not just like if you are poor, if you have any sort of mental health diagnosis, if you are pagan, these are things, if you were in the system as a kid, like me, I met all of those. So I was fucked. But any one of those becomes something that they use. Also single parents. They really hate single parents here, particularly single mothers. Arizona has issues. There are attitudes here that shouldn't be and are literally discrimination. There are rulings that get made that are literally against the law. Like this one case that I know about where the only thing that they went after these parents for having medical marijuana cards. That was it. There was no abuse, there was no neglect, they weren't even smoking around the kids. The kids had adequate supervision at all times. They were very responsible about it. And in the end, they even gave up their medical marijuana cards because that is what CPS was like. They were basically demanding, don't take your medicine. And they did it, and the rights were severed, and not even like a couple months later, someone was posting online the kids under different names, saying that they'd adopted them, and they were still in for they actually, unlike what happened to the boys and I, their lawyer actually filed for and they were in for appeal. And this entire thing, like the whole basis that they did any of this is completely against the law. And that happens a lot in Arizona. They don't fucking care about the law here. The judges think they are the law, and often they will make decisions that are completely against the law. That case shouldn't have even happened. What happened to my boys and I shouldn't have either. They never even accused me of anything, of doing or failing to do anything specific. What they did was they nebulously said neglect, but then they said due to mental illness, and then they accused my ex-husband of failure to protect. Nobody was being accused of doing anything specific. There was no specific neglect, no specific anything. They weren't outlining any specific way in which they were saying that I was hindered. They just said, like, you're just incapable. Well, also documenting in their paperwork that I was doing everything that I was supposedly incapable of. They had no instances in which I had ever failed. There was no documentation there of any time I had ever failed. It was just this witch hunt. And that happens a lot out here. It was treated as if it was this. People acted like this was normal throughout the entire process. There was nobody that was surprised that this was happening. And there was this point, I actually saw some things. Whenever we were at the courthouse, there was this teenage girl, and the only reason that they had her kid is because she was a teenager. That was it. That kid hadn't been hurt either, and they were openly talking about it. And it was so crowded, like you would just have groups of people waiting to go into the courtroom. It was like, it's to the point where they overcrowded the family courtrooms, and it went into juvenile court. Despite the fact that juvenile court judges are not family court judges. They gave me a guardian ad litem who actually stood up and said that I did not need her, and that I was understandably upset about the situation. The judge actually flipped that, turned that around, and basically said that she acted like me being upset at all was dangerous because I have a mental health diagnosis. And she said, basically she treated it as if I was dangerous. And said that, she outright said that if the lady felt that she was ever in any danger to notify her, and that I would be barred from proceedings. For expressing frustration, for letting them know that I was upset about it, for being a normal human being. These things go on, and there are people who consider these completely normal. This is completely routine. This happens to a lot of people, and I have been speaking out about it for years. I faced retaliation, all sorts of things for it. And there have been other times, though, where it's been the opposite. I've had a random parent I've never met come up to me that I'd never met in person. I don't know if it was online or something, or if it, because, posting in the groups talking about what to do. It's one of the only reasons why I still go on Facebook at all. And what I always tell people is, and there are certain points where if you can point some things out, sometimes some people will behave in it. Oftentimes calling the ombudsman and whatnot, the response would be, well, I contacted the social worker and she says this isn't true. What? That's your entire basis. You didn't investigate any further. You didn't look at anything. You just decided that someone is telling you that someone is doing this thing. They're not sure exactly what law is being broken, but it seems like this should be illegal. And I was young. I didn't know all the laws. I didn't know a lot of things that I know now. I just knew that there was a lot that was wrong, and that often they would hold my kids above me, and there were things that they would do that I know now are completely against the law. There were rights that were being violated. I was not notified whenever my kids went to the hospital, when they were hurt, when there was doctor's appointments. I was told that it was up to the foster home to decide whether or not they that phone calls and whatnot were allowed, to hear their voices and know that they were all right and whatnot. This is actually false. It is parental right to have at least that much access as long as you have your parental rights intact. They acted like I had no rights. They acted like my kids had no rights. They just did whatever they wanted. The guardian ad litem did not even know my kids' names. They had to be told their names as they were testifying. And every time they would say something, they would look at the worker and they were just saying what they were told. That's it. Everybody knew ahead of time how things were going to go. And the judge would constantly advise against submitting any sort of evidence. I mean, not the judge, my lawyer. She might as well have been a judge. In that, she certainly seemed to think that she was. Whenever it came to saying, oh no, we can't submit this evidence, these photographs will only piss off the judge. This paperwork will only piss off the judge. This note from your doctor will only piss off the judge. And all of this stuff was also submitted to the social workers through email or in person, and they never submitted it to court. It was never submitted because it did not support the narrative that they were trying to weave. And the narrative didn't even have a basis. I was never even accused of doing anything. It was that I would eventually do something. Because fear-mongering, I guess. And this goes on here. I managed to avoid a gag order, but a lot of people don't. Gag orders are used a lot here to stop people from talking about it. They think that if they do that, people will not, I guess, know about it. But it's such common knowledge here. That's impossible. It's been going on for too long. It's been corrupt since before even I was a kid. All the Clinton bill did was make it worse. It just created an entire economy out of exploitation. That's all it is. It's legal child trafficking, which, by the way, I was accused of calling it long before I actually did. Probably because one of the workers was stalking the websites and looking for different things in the groups. She was she couldn't even describe my kids. Probably too busy on Facebook, stalking parents trying to find advice on what to do in an impossible situation. Wherever she got that one, she didn't get it from me. I actually looked up the term afterwards and found out that is actually what a lot of parents in that situation call it. They not only admitted to using retaliation in court, but then they justified it, saying that I had complained about the investigative worker, which is true, I did. She entered my home without a warrant. She had no probable cause. There's no probable cause listed in the paperwork either. Like, they don't even try. It's not even trying. It was so bad. It was so incredibly bad. And they weren't even consistent. Then they tried to say that I willingly did all these things, that I willingly gave up my voice. I did not. This was a forced removal with a police officer present with no probable cause and no warrant. They had not done a prior investigation. They did not have anything to prove that they did a prior investigation. And the only thing that the judge said substantiated anything was that they had physical custody of my kids. That was the only substantiation. There was nothing at all and she didn't care that there was nothing. There was no accusation to substantiate other than like that I was crazy, and I was clearly able to stand there and speak for myself. But that didn't matter. It didn't matter because that's not what they were after. I've learned a lot in the years since. I've learned that that particular judge has a hard-on for funding. That there are videos of her and another judge actually advocating for what they did to us. Making decisions based on funding. That judge allowed them to torment us. And she allowed what happened. She not only allowed it, she openly advocated it even in her own courtroom. I was never accused of doing or failing to do anything specific. The most erroneous, there was one thing in the paperwork, which was an easily proven lie because it was accidentally in a picture too that was actually on social media at the time too. So she tried to say that, like, I guess, I don't know if it was a supervisor afterwards or whatnot, but whenever she showed up, the boys were napping because, they were an 18-month-old and an 8-month-old, and they take naps. And I was doing laundry by hand in the bathroom because we didn't really have enough money budgeted out to do quarters for laundry. So yeah, I had to improvise too because they wouldn't let us dry things outside either. The apartment complex was very, they wanted to believe that they were nicer than they were. They really weren't. There was not very many units to begin with, and they overcharged. The dryer didn't even work all the way. You had to run it several times. And that was a lot of money. Yeah. And they didn't have enough units. Maybe if they'd only had like 4 apartments. But no. I think there was only like 2 washers and 2 dryers for everybody. No. Even if we'd had the quarters, there's no guarantee we could have even gotten in there. So I was washing things by hand. And I am too short to step over a baby gate. So the baby gate that I needed to walk through on the hallway, I had taken down and I had it leaning on the wall. In the paperwork, they tried to say that I had no baby gate. That's literally the only thing, and that's not enough to take anybody's kids. Literally. It's also easily proven that that was complete fabrication. Yeah, I couldn't actually bring myself to get rid of our baby gates from back then, so I actually still have them. Still with teeth marks from Rowan and Rohan. Because those are the same ones that I had from the beginning. And you know, babies chew on things.